The Owaco-class cutter was a 255-foot cutter class operated by the United States Coast Guard. A total of 13 cutters in the class were built, all named after lakes. 11 were constructed by the Western Pipe and Steel Company at San Pedro, California, while the remaining 2, Mendota and Pontchartrain, were constructed by the Coast Guard Yard at Curtis Bay, Maryland. Initially heavily armed for World War II service and designated patrol gunboats WPG under the United States Navy designation system. The vessels were stripped of much of their armament shortly after the war, and in 1965 were redesignated high-endurance cutters, WHEC, after the Coast Guard adopted its own designation system. The 13 cutters consisted of Owasco, Winnebago, Chautauqua, Sebago, Iroquois, Wachusett, Escanaba, Winona, Klamath, Minnetonka, Androscoggin, Mendota, and Pontchartrain. Myths have long shadowed the design history of the 255-foot class. These cutters were to have been much larger ships, and 2 theories persist as to why they were shortened. The first is that they were built to replace the ships supplied to Great Britain under Lend-Lease, and Congress stipulated that the Coast Guard had to build these replacement cutters to the same size and character as those provided to the British. The second is that their length was determined by the maximum length that could pass through the locks of the Welland Canal from the Great Lakes to the St. Lawrence River. The Great Lakes shipbuilding industry brought pressure on Congress to ensure that it had the potential to bid on the contract. The first theory seems to be correct, but the second cannot be ruled out. The Coast Guard had prepared a design for a 316-foot, 96 meters, cutter that was to have been an austere 327. This design was cut down into the 255-foot ship. To accomplish this, everything was squeezed down and automated to a degree not before achieved in a turbo-electric driven ship. The machinery design of the 255s was compact and innovative, but overly complex. It had pilot house control, variable rate burners, and automatic synchronizing between the turbogenerator and the motor. Westinghouse engineers developed a system of synchronization and a variable frequency drive for main propulsion auxiliary equipment, which kept the pumps and other items at about 2/3 the power required for constant frequency operation. The combined boiler room engine room was a break with tradition. The turbo alternators for ship service power exhausted at 20 pounds per square inch gauge pressure instead of into a condenser. This steam was used all over the ship before finally going to a condenser. Space heating, galley, cooking, laundry, freshwater evaporation, fuel, and feed water heating were all taken from the 20 pounds per square inch back pressure line. The 255-foot class was an ice-going design. Ice operations had been assigned to the Coast Guard early in the war, and almost all new construction was either ice-going or ice-breaking. The hull was designed with constant flare at the waterline for ice-going. The superstructure of the 255s was originally divided into 2 islands in order to accommodate an aircraft amidships, but this requirement was dropped before any of the units became operational. The number of ships in the class, 13 in total, had an interesting origin. 3 were to have been replacements for overaged cutters, the Ossipee, Tallapoosa, and Unalaga, and 10 units were to be replacements for the 250-foot, 76 meters, class transferred to Great Britain under Lend-Lease. For economy, all 13 units were built to the same design. The class was initially heavily armed with World War II service in mind, but much of this armament was deemed unnecessary for peacetime and was removed in the post-war period. 3. Construction of the class received a low priority, and consequently none of the cutters were commissioned in time to see action in World War II, but a number eventually saw combat in the Vietnam War. They were all, however, to provide many years of peacetime service in regular Coast Guard roles such as law enforcement, ocean station, and search and rescue operations. Iroquois suffered major damage in a maritime incident in the 1950s and was cannibalized for parts for the other cutters before being scrapped in 1965. The remainder of the class was scrapped in 1974.